especially once you get into social media, which I'll touch on in a second, that can be quite challenging. You're managing your social media, organic content, your paid content, but you've also got clients coming in through that channel, and how do you effectively manage that? I think the most important point here is, again, in terms of integrating across the business, to remember these principles of good customer service. So this is not about, okay, great, we want to be digital, we want to be cool, how do we do this on social? It's just about get the basics right, integrate what you're doing. So what you're doing anywhere else on client service across the business is what you're doing in digital as well. So there's a consistent element, because ultimately we come back to the client. What does the client see you as? They see you as one business. They don't see you as a digital marketing department and a customer services department and a sales department. They see you as one business, and you need to speak as one voice with one process. So these points are all important. You're working together as a team. You're listening to the client. I mean, I'm not going to preach about this stuff too much, but being real, being authentic, not working to scripts too much, being honest, being empathetic, moving fast, and knowledge as well. But just having a quick chart. Oh yeah, a little stat, I forgot about that one. 89% of businesses will compete mainly on customer services, according to Gartner, in a few years' time, which I think is very true. You know, we look at that now. I think the world is moving, as it's become more digital, to customers having access to a lot more information, a lot more data, therefore becoming a lot more cynical. You know, maybe 30 years ago, businesses could stick some TV adverts out there and people would just believe it, because why wouldn't you? Because they're a big business, so we can trust them, right? Not really the case anymore. I think we've all had enough economic issues and problems. I work for a bank, so I won't say too much, but certainly enough problems down the years for people not to trust anymore. And because of that transparency, I think this is a very fair point. People will tend to lean towards organizations that they can trust much more so than those who have got the right offer at the right time. But one chart, this is a sneak preview of my book, which I promised I wouldn't go on about. The principles in practice. The point of this, hopefully relatively tidy a chart here is to show, of all those things we just talked about, apologies that the words don't exactly match what was on the last slide, but the points are the same: understanding your customer, empathy, transparency, knowledge, consistency, how they contribute to the journey that the customer goes down. So understanding your customer and having knowledge of your products shows you know your facts. And if you know your facts, you can be trusted, right? So that's very important. If you know your facts, people will understand you. If you then are responsive, you'll obviously respond quickly on those facts as well. And obviously, again, that will help them. And then you create further trust through being transparent, through being empathetic to the customer, through consistency. And this comes through to the point of, if someone were to call you, or they were to come through social media, or they were to email you, they're going to get the same response, the same tone of voice, the same language. You're integrated and you're relevant to what they're talking about. All of that overall, when combined, delivers the positive result you're looking for. So the integration there is crucially important. And social service, so on customer service, specifically on social, I think, I mean, I don't know if you guys know, does anyone know any of what happened with any of these? Do these ring a bell with anyone? We've got Ask JPM, Ask BG, Tesco tweets, and a Burger King hack. Does anyone know any of what I'm talking about with any of those examples? Yeah, good. So this is where social service can get dangerous, and I think this is an important point. So moving into social service is great because you're there, you're on the front line, you can have engagement with your clients. However, it does open up huge risks as well. So Ask JP Morgan was a fantastic social idea of allowing anyone to tweet in questions for the CEO, I think it was. And this happened just after they'd made massive trading losses and been exposed for something hideous that I can't quite remember. It's written down here somewhere, but where is it? Mis-selling. That was it, mis-selling. So basically what they got was thousands of abusive tweets telling them all kinds of words that I won't use here right now. So there's nothing positive that comes out of that. You know, by opening up to social service and promoting it without really understanding the situation you're in, you can really damage yourself. Likewise, British Gas did a tweet on the day they put their prices up by 10%, saying, come and ask us your questions. Not very smart, right? I think we all know what those questions are going to be. Tesco, what was Tesco? What's the Tesco example? Let's see. Oh, yes. Tesco was actually, they had a big meat scandal, a big horse meat scandal. I don't know if you remember a few years ago. And they had a tweet that they scheduled for the end of the day saying, we're off to hit the hay. Oops. So slight cock up there. Burger King, literally, Burger King did nothing wrong here, but by being out there on the social networks, they got hacked. someone changed their logo to a clown with red makeup, said that McDonald's had bought out Burger King and because the Whopper had been a big failure. So these kind of things, you're exposed to this stuff basically. So social service can be fantastic, but the point is it's exceptionally risky at the same time. And the way to mitigate that risk is to have some good security processes in place. So that's quite important. I don't know how, I think Burger King must have been exceptionally unlucky there. But also, again, this point comes back to integration. So you're using social media, your clients are using social media, probably your PR department, whether they sit under your control or not, are using social media, probably HR are using social media for recruitment. And again, this tends to work in silos, right? And it tends to be the right arm doesn't know what the left arm's doing, right? It doesn't even know there is a left arm sometimes, never mind what it's doing. So I think the integration point, understanding what's going on in the bigger picture, and obviously I work in a global role, so that can be extremely challenging in global roles to understand what's going on and coming into something and then someone has an idea the next day and goes straight for it when you're in bed, you have no idea it's even happened. So aligning these things, having processes in place to ensure that what's going on with the news, what's going on in each country, what's going on with your process, that everyone's there, there's a sign off on it, there's a good procedure for that is really important. I won't go into what those processes and procedures should look like because I think that would be quite a dull slide, to be honest, but I think, like I say, the important point being, who owns this, who's responsible for it, how do we sign off on it, how do we have knowledge of what's going on in all the different areas, how do we meet to discuss this on a regular basis. All of those are really key considerations to getting this right. And 2/3 of customers have used a company's social media site for servicing, and that's a number that's only going to grow, so hugely important. So social itself, again, you're challenging it. When you come to these events, a lot of what you hear is someone stands up and talks about social, and they talk about how fantastic it is and all the great things that are coming up next, all the new social networks, fantastic, great, all these campaigns, and can't disagree with that. There's loads of great stuff happening there. Why we should all be in mobile, what a great content strategy looks like. Yeah, great, they're all fine. What I'm doing is saying, but do you really want to do this? Okay, so people mainly hate me if I do this, but the point is, social isn't right for everybody, right? Sometimes opening yourself up to that, as we say, can be dangerous. So is it sensible for your business? Is there any real genuine benefit for your business? Is important. Not jumping on the bandwagon, and we've seen it many times in marketing down the years. When people started to develop websites in the late 90s, a lot of people were developing websites because they felt they needed to develop websites when they had nothing to say and no purpose being there whatsoever. It's just a waste of money. And nowadays you wouldn't argue that, but back in the day there were websites that sat there for 5 years untouched, doing nothing, that had no visitors and served no purpose. Along comes social. Everyone starts creating social Facebook pages and just sits there getting a load of abuse and gets absolutely no benefit from it whatsoever. Mobile. Oh, let's create an app. Everyone else has got an app. Let's create an app. Do our clients actually want an app? It doesn't matter. We've got to have an app. Everyone's got an app. So these kind of things, jumping on the bandwagon is very, very dangerous. So I think the point here is that is social sensible for you? And some of the considerations are, will you be authentic? Are you trying to use this to advertise? And that's fine if you're doing paid social, but organic content, if you haven't really got anything to say, if you haven't got any thought leadership, any content to put out there that's genuinely going to be of interest, you're just going to get abuse if you start using advertising, because that's very, very heavily disliked across the social channels, as I'm sure most of you know. Do you have a content strategy set up? I'll talk about this quickly in a second. How am I doing on time, by the way? Plenty of time, right?
15%.
Yeah, great. Is your content strategy set up? There is no point in going headlong into social unless, again, you've really thought through how this is integrated. So from a content perspective, yes, you need content for social, but how does that work with what you're doing everywhere else? How does that work with your direct mail, for example, as Carl talked about earlier? How does it work with your press advertising? How does it work with your PR? How does it work with your email campaigns? Integrating all of this stuff together so there's a content strategy is going to make it far more powerful. If people are seeing things on the channels that they're on, be that social or TV advertising, that resonates with what they've seen elsewhere, we all know there's the halo effect. We all know that we can benefit from multi-channel. So understanding that and making sure you've got the content, you've got a strategy set up to integrate that is really important. Do you separate the social channels? How many people in the room, interestingly, have a social media strategy at the moment? Good. Okay. So great. We're going to do another one of these. So I know how much you're enjoying it. I can see all the smiles on your faces. Out of those people who have social media strategies, how many work on more than one social network? Okay. And out of those that work on more than one social network, how many of you have a completely different strategy for each network? oh, that's quite impressive. That's not bad. That's probably slightly over half of you. So that's really good. That's very good. So this is an important point. It sounds like most of you know this already, which is great. But the vital thing is that people use social networks in different